All right, welcome to another edition of Buck What You Heard. My name is Gene. You can reach me at Taco Pimp, the real Taco Pimp. Just joking. Yeah, just follow me on Twitter. You follow me, I'll follow you back. It's been a long time since I've been on. Bear with me one moment. Pless is running a little bit late, but he will be on. And give me one moment. I got some feedback here. It's been on, so try to get this all cleaned up. Okay, so let's try this again and see what happens, and see if we can't get this fixed. But as I was mentioning earlier, I haven't been on for a while, but I'm back on, and I just was kind of taking a break a little bit from from sports a little bit, but I'm back. And I'm ready to talk some sports myself. Pless is trying to get on right now. He should be jumping on here momentarily, and we'll get his insight on things. So, it's been a really interesting off season, and I know for me, I've kind of taken a step back from the off season a little bit, and I'm really trying to evaluate and see what this team is really going to do. And right now, I know a lot of people may not agree with the way I'm looking at this, but I want to see this team win games. I don't really care anymore who they get. I care more about when the season starts, who they get can come in and contribute and help this team win. That's what I'm looking for. So, when I sound, I don't mean to sound nonchalant about this, but the Bucks always win in the offseason. I don't care about the offseason anymore. It's going to be interesting to talk about this stuff, but I can't put a lot of stock in it until this team can go out and start winning. And that's kind of where we're at. To me, the Bucks are like, let's see, they had 9 wins. Then, so the Bucks have not even hit 20 wins in 3 years. That's unacceptable. In my opinion, that's totally unacceptable. And it's something that they need to get fixed. So, it's cool to talk about this stuff and, who could come here, who might not come here. And, but I'm waiting for the regular season, man. That's where the rubber hits the road. We know who's going to do what. And there's been a little bit of talk in the chat. I've seen some people talking about different free agents that could potentially come to Tampa. And to me, it's been really interesting. The one name that keeps popping up, and I just can't rationalize how it could happen, is Le'Veon Bell. I keep hearing Le'Veon Bell's name, and guys, I really need you to understand this. Le'Veon Bell sat out a whole season because he wasn't getting his money. A whole season. This guy gave up. He just pretty much said, "Hey, I'm throwing the season away. I'll get ready next season, and let's see what I can do financially." Now, do you really believe that the Bucks are going to come up with? And this is from Jason Lockenfora was talking about this. He said Bell will seek a contract worth $50 million in the first 2 years of the deal. $50 million in the first 2 years of the deal. I just cannot, in any capacity, see the Tampa Bay Buccaneers even remotely considering this type of max contract, considering the people that they're trying to sign, free agents they want to bring in, and then we haven't even looked at the draft class. So there's a lot that goes into this stuff, and I'm sorry, this is just it doesn't make sense to me. I mean, if it happens, and let me preface this by saying this: if it does happen, I'm good with it. He's a Buccaneer, and I'm good with that. Um, and again, there again, Eric Hardnett. This is what I'm saying. Bell is interested in the Bucks, Eagles, and Jets. The Jets have the cap space to do it. The Eagles do not have the cap space to do it. If you go look at their cap space, and you can see for yourself that they can't afford Le'Veon Bell unless he takes unless he takes a pay cut, which wouldn't make any sense to me considering he set out the whole season last year because he wasn't getting his money. There are a lot of key pieces, and not to get off on a tangent or anything like this, but if you look at the Super Bowl, if you looked at it and looked at the New England Patriots, that's a team that played the team concept. They didn't have like one superstar on both sides of the ball. They had guys that played together collectively in a scheme that worked for them, and they were able to neutralize some things that the Rams were doing. That the NFL is a team concept, and one player is not going to totally totally flip a team around. It just doesn't happen. And that's kind of where I'm at with all this. I think there are some good running backs, some good serviceable running backs that can be upgrades in the Buccaneers offense that will definitely help them. It doesn't have to be your big names. It doesn't. Um, Again, when you talk about the contract that he's looking to sign or have signed, hold on, give me 1 minute. Let me get Pless on here real quick. All right, give me one moment and we will get see if I get Pless on here. And I'll get back to what I was saying earlier. Hey, Pless, can you hear me? Let's see. We'll get him on here in just a moment. Hey, Pless, you there? Yeah, give me a standby for me 1 moment. Let's see if we can get him up and running here.
Sorry.
Hey, you there? Hey, Pless. Let's see here. All right. So as soon as he comes on, he should be on here in just a moment. I got him locked in here. So just kind of going back. I'm going to go back to the chat here in just a minute. Um, and again, Eric, I see what you're saying, but again, Le'Veon Bell could be interested in the Bucs, but hey, how you doing, Pless?
Oh my gosh.
Hey, Pless, can you hear me? Okay, let's see if I can. Let's see. All right, I think we lost him again. I'll try to come back. I'll try to get him on here in just a second again. He's having technical difficulties. We'll try to get him back on here in just a moment. But going back to what I was saying, we're talking about Le'Veon Bell. Again, if you look at that contract with all the people that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are trying to sign, I can't see you putting all your eggs in one basket with one free agent when you have so many other holes to fill on this team. And there are serviceable players on both sides of the ball that are going to be available in free agency. It realistically does not make sense to do that. So I understand you wanting him here, but I just don't feel like, this is the guy that's gonna be here. All right, let's try this one more time. I think we got him this time. What's up? What's up, man? Hey, Pless. Try this one more time. Let's see if we can get him on here. And yeah, let's see if eventually he'll come on. I know he's been having some computer issues, so I think he will be on once he gets that all corrected. But like I said, going back to what I was saying, I mean, there's just so many things so many holes the Bucs need to fill. I really don't see how that would be an answer. I'm going through the chat right now. Savage Man, imagine if the Steelers had Antonio Brown and Le'Veon Bell and Big Ben. Yeah, I agree. That could have worked out if that was the issue. Sin A, what's going on? What's going on in Mississippi? Hope everything's all right. Jeremy St. John's. Hopefully Bruce Arians helps us. I feel like a lack of coaching and talent with me. Lovie Smith was past his prime, and the only proven coach we have had since Gruden. Yeah, I can agree with that. Gruden got a Super Bowl here, so you're absolutely right. And if you go back and listen to some of my podcasts, I've talked about how the Tampa Bay Buccaneers have brought in coaches. So this has been something that's ongoing, and it's something that I hope that they will be able to get corrected with this. I hope they've actually found the right coach. Um, Eric Hardnett was saying between the Jets and the Bucs, the Jets have the cap space to bring in a Le'Veon Bell and pay him that max contract. Again, that would be that would be a move that I could see happening. And give me one more. Let's try it again here. What's up, Pless? Hey, Pless, you there? Let's see. All right, let's see. Slowly becoming the Cardinals. Give me 1 second here. Let's see if we can get him on here. I know he's still having issues with Skype. I'll tell you what. I'll come back to him in just a minute here. Hey, you there, Plus? Can you hear me? Oh, okay. Tommy Travis was saying trade Deshaun Jackson and a third rounder to Arizona for Patrick Peterson, or possible second instead of third rounder. Well, I don't know what's going to happen there. I don't know. I don't know how that would happen, but it's anything's possible. And then Savage Man was saying, why would the Bucs sign Bell with no offensive line? That's what makes sense to me. And I think the thing that really gets missed is that Peyton Barber would have been 1,000-yard rusher if the offensive line was a little bit better. If the Bucs had committed to the run a little bit more, it just would have. That's the way it would have been. Let me try something real quick here. Let me see if I can get Plus here real quick, and we will. Hey, Plus, you there?
Please work.
Yeah, I think we may have something here. Let me. No video.
Don't know yet.
Oh, okay. I'm gonna go ahead and get you on. We're talking a little bit about free agency right now, and give me a second here. Let me get the stream up. All right, let's see here. All right, here we go. Yeah, once we get your video on. So you're in now. I mean I can't see your video, but we can hear you.
You can hear me now?
Yeah. Can you okay. you guys everybody can hear him?
I apologize.
No worries, man. Those things happen, but we got you on. Let me make sure that can anybody in the chat hear Pless? Just let me know. Okay. Tommy can hear you. That's good. So basically what we're talking about Le'Veon Bell, and the point I was trying to make is Le'Veon Bell is looking for like $50 million in the first two years of his contract. In that right there's so many other things that the Bucs need. There's so many deficiencies, and there's so many depth issues on this team. I just can't see why you would spend that much money on a free agent who held out for a max contract and expect something to happen.
Yeah, I mean Le'Veon Bell, I don't think it's worth it, and he's definitely not coming to Tampa Bay. I think a lot of people were looking at that and thinking that could be an option, but yeah, I don't see that happening. I don't think that's in the cards. No, it's not. And the value of running back is going down each year. I talked about it tonight earlier on my other podcast. It's just the number of attempts. The number of attempts and value is going down. So, it's just the running back position is going to be overpriced if you're looking at it from a free agency standpoint, and it's not worth paying a guy like that upwards of 15 million or whatever it's going to be per year. It's just not worth it in the end.
Yeah, he's and when you consider he didn't want the 16 million that the Steelers offered, and he sat out the whole season. I just realistically couldn't see him coming to Tampa
Mm-hmm.
in any way, really. It just doesn't make sense, especially when you've got players like Dwight, you've got Donovan Smith, and then you've got Quan Alexander, and there are other free agents that the Bucs have, maybe even a Peyton Barber. Do you re-sign a Peyton Barber, who is a guy who I think had he had the right offensive line, or they committed to the run a little bit more, would have been 1,000-yard rusher. I mean, you're talking about a guy that I just believe was, the whole situation was kind of mismanaged. So um, we don't we don't really have an idea of what Bruce Arians is doing, other than I saw where Andre Ellington was re-signed, and
Mm-hmm.
again, I don't know what that is. We still we haven't even got to camp, so that may just be a whole filler right there, and he may be there temporarily. Who knows? He may stay. I don't. I'm just really trying to get a feel for what he's trying to do with this team right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I think all of us are, we still have questions that we're trying to get answered. But, when you look at Andre Ellington, I think that's just a guy that they wanted to bring in. And, he's a good, valuable depth piece for the roster. And again, he's a guy that understands what, Bruce Arians is asking for. And I don't think it's a move that doesn't hurt the Bucs at all. And I think they'll still look to add a running back or two to the roster, whether that's via the draft or free agency. But Ellington is a guy that can be a productive player if called upon. So I look at it from that standpoint, and definitely can help this roster. And again, it's no guarantee that he's on the final 53. Um, but at the same time, he's going to help guys like Peyton Barber and Ronald Jones get better. Same thing with Sean Wilson. So it's just another piece to the puzzle.
Yeah, most definitely. Um, I'm just looking through the chat here. I know there was a question I was going to ask you about. Um, yeah, Albino Rhino 33 was saying, how do you feel about people saying that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are slowly becoming the Cardinals? Again, with any head coach that's a former head coach, if he has a chance to get players that were helpful to his scheme, that could potentially be helpful to younger players, somebody that has a good locker room presence and can help him to get people to buy into what he's trying to do. I think it's logical. Those are moves that you try to make. I don't see him grabbing everybody from the Cardinals or former Cardinals and bringing them in, but I could see certain players that he's comfortable with being brought in to really help him to get people to buy into what he's trying to do.
Yeah, for sure. I think you look at Andre Ellington, and then other guys that could potentially be Buccaneers this offseason. I don't really mind it, and I don't see it as a bad thing. Again, it's about finding those right pieces that can be quality depth for your roster, and really um, be productive if they're asked to go out there and play. And that's something that this team I think has needed. And again, you look at our past couple of coaches. Yes, they brought in players from the Bears and the Falcons, but um, at the same time, any new coach is going to kind of do that. Again, it goes back to familiarity and comfort. Being comfortable out there. So if you have guys that you trust and they can be high productive players, then yeah, sure, they're going to bring those guys in.
Yeah, and again, this I'm still frustrated by the last two seasons, and I'm kind of taking more of the approach that I want to see more wins. I
Hmm.
know the team is going to get players in, but I think it's more important to see what happens with the players you bring in. Is do they contribute to help you win?
Hmm.
And I think that this year should be the theme for fans. Fans should want to see more wins and not worry so much about who's coming in. but how they're being utilized, and are they helping the team to win? I mean, it's
Mhm.
fun to talk about this stuff, but like, I don't know, over the past couple of weeks, I've seen so many debates and arguments
Mhm.
about this guy coming, this guy's not coming, you're wrong, I'm right. And at the end of the day, we should be talking about wins and losses. We should still be pissed off about this team not getting over 500 in the win and loss column. I mean, that's something that, should be more of a conversation than who you get, because I mean, you could bring in Le'Veon Bell. I don't know how he would run behind this offensive line if everything stayed the way it is. I know it's not going to,
Mhm.
but if everything stayed the way it is, I mean, I don't know how productive he could really be behind this offensive line. There's so many different things that really need to get tweaked or fixed, and the locker room, as you've talked about ad nauseum, there needs to be accountability. There
Mhm.
needs to be changes in culture in the locker room, and I heard somebody say that we're just being cliche by saying that, but
Mhm.
you see some locker rooms, you see locker rooms of winning teams, and you don't see a lot of the stuff that you see here in Tampa. And I don't
Right.
know if you would agree with that or not. I mean, you rarely hear about any of the crazy stuff, this kind of thing, you know, punching lockers or whatever, being disrespectful to coaches. You don't see a lot of that in New England or or some of your teams that traditionally win games. So I don't know. I just we'll just have to wait and see.
Mhm.
Savage Man said if Bucks cut McCoy, they should draft a defensive tackle. Again, again, I keep coming back to this. We don't know. McCoy may restructure his contract. We don't know
Mhm.
what's going to happen right now. We don't know where Bruce Arians is with all this. It's been pretty quiet as far as uh, you know what I as far as hearing things going on. It's been they've pretty much kept everything close to the vest so far. What have you heard?
Yeah, I mean, we're probably not going to hear much until we get into next week when the combine starts up, and then you start getting closer to free agency. So, um, yeah, I mean, going back on your points about accountability, yeah, I mean, that's where it starts at. You got to have the right mix of guys in the locker room. It's about finding the right players. It's not always about the best talent. It's about the right players that you can put together and really build a roster. And that's what Jason Light, I think, has, he's been inconsistent with. It's about finding that right mix and really making the roster more balanced overall. Um, from any position, it has to be top bottom. The depth has to be there, and
Yeah,
really build your roster the right way. And I think going into this offseason, we all know that the priorities for this team is up front in the offensive line, defensive line. You could add some more pieces here and there to the secondary or to the running back position, but there's going to be reconfiguration of this roster, and that's it's got to take place, and we have to make the right decisions as far as who to keep and who to pursue. As far as McCoy goes, I think personally I don't see him coming back, especially at 13 million. If they can restructure his deal, then maybe it's a possibility. But I mean, his name is going to be thrown around here, over the next couple of weeks, whether that be in trade or, as far as contract renegotiation. So it'll be interesting, but this defense is going to change. I mean, we're
yeah.
probably going to shift more towards a 3-4. Again, you're playing mostly a nickel defense, so you're going to have 4-man fronts. You're going to have your 5-man, 6-man blitzes. Um, so there's going to be some change. There's going to be some more
Can you
priority.
can you do me a favor? Can you go in a little bit more depth? Because I think people are still missing the point. They think that when you
Mhm.
see a 3-4 defense, it's from first quarter to fourth quarter. And I think people are missing the point about that concept,
Mhm.
where you being in nickel, you have a 4-man front. Yeah, but you can disguise blitzes, and you could do it. You have a little bit more flexibility if you have the right personnel when you're running something like this. But can you go into a little bit more detail about this?
Yeah, sure. I mean, we're with the defensive staff that is coming over to this team this season with Todd Bowles running it. he likes to run a 3-4 attacking style defense. So basically, you have your three. He likes bigger linemen, so it's a little bit more bigger up front as far as your 3 down linemen, and then you're going to have your 4 linebackers. Mainly your 2 linebackers, which would be your inside or called stack linebackers. That'd be your Levante David and Quan Alexander if he's back, or your Kendall Beckwith. And then on the outside, you would have your, kind of hybrid defensive end slash linebacker guys that can really, set the edge and get after the quarterback. Looking at it from that standpoint, that would be what you call your base defense. That would be your first and second down defense if they're in like a running formation or heavy set. But again, in today's NFL, you don't really see that. It's more receivers, more spread out. It's it passing heavy. So when you shift over to a nickel defense or a dime defense, you have you're going to have 4 linemen pretty much in there to get after the quarterback, and you're going to have more speed on the field, and that's something Todd Bowles really likes. He likes to have speed guys, especially speed in the linebacking core, and then he really puts his secondary kind of on an island, but his safeties are pretty much, they have the ability to free roam if they want to, so they have a little bit more flexibility, a little more versatile. Your corners are going to be asked to play more press man coverage and get a little bit more aggressive. But it's really about, he wants to really stop the run first, and then on his way, he wants to create pressure in the backfield and really get after the quarterback. And that will come with, disguises, like you said, or some kind of combination of blitzes. Again, obviously you want to win with that front 4. But yeah, I mean, there's going to be 4 linemen out there most of the time. Sometimes you could go to 3 linemen and have more linebackers on the field where they run like a 3-3-5, or if you want to run a 2-4, you could run a 2-4-5 where you have 2 down linemen and then you have your 4 linebackers coming after you. So there's a lot of different ways he can mix it up, but it's going to be both ways. You're going to have a lot of multiple schemes just because that's the way you have to play these days with the passing offenses that you have. So it's going to be a mix of both. But as far as and who they add, what kind of fit is JPP going to be? What kind of role is Carl Nassib going to do? Are they going to stand those guys up and let them, be those outside edge rushers, or are they going to put them inside with Vita Vea? So all those things, those are some questions that we still have, and hopefully that comes clearer as we get closer, and I'm sure it will.
Yeah, most definitely. Thank you for clearing that up.
Oh, no problem.
Again, there's so much you can do with the defense when you have a hybrid like this, and you're not limited to one thing. You can make adjustments at halftime or from quarter to quarter and make a big difference. So you're looking at a team that excuse me, you're looking at a bunch of head coaches now, or coaches that have the ability to make those changes and stuff. So it's going to be pretty good. There was a question in the chat. Excuse me. They were asking about Donovan Smith. And what are your thoughts on him? I think they franchise him. I wouldn't see them going out trying to find somebody right now. I think you would keep him, and I would hope that they have a better line coach that can kind of coach him up, and we can see if this is the guy that you want to keep for the future, or do you go ahead and let him walk after this year. So I think it would be a smart move to go ahead and go ahead and franchise him and keep him in. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, it's tough with Donovan. I was back and forth on this, after watching his tape, and personally, I feel like he's gonna get overpaid, and that's just what the left tackle market is today. I mean, you have a lot of guys out there that are, making more than they should, and that's just the way the market is going. It's going up, and you
I think
have
that's
guys.
for most players, though.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, a lot of positions are getting a little overvalued. But again, left tackle is one of the key positions in this league. And when you look at Donovan Smith, I mean, again, problem with him is just consistency. But at the same time, he's a very serviceable left tackle, very dependable. He's going to be out there every game, very durable in that sense. But and he has his mistakes. Again, he struggles with speed. He's going to get beat here from time to time. But for the most part, he is actually a decent left tackle, and those are hard to find. And if you let him go and you go into free agency, you're pretty much going to pay what you're going to pay Donovan Smith.
Right.
So, you might as well keep the guy that you're most familiar with. And again, he's only 25 years old. I don't think he had the best coaching while he was here. Can get him right and get him a little bit more consistent, because he is actually a pretty good left tackle when his game is on, and
Right.
he can win at first point of contact. He is pretty good. But we'll see what happens. I think you're right. I think they'll try to likely franchise tag him. Um, Place, for the right price, around 12 to 13 million. And if you can do that, then yeah, you might as well do it, because it's still less than the franchise tag of 14 million, and it saves you a little bit more money. But the line, and if you bring back the rest with Donovan Smith and Dotson, then I think you'll have a serviceable line that can be very effective.
So who do you put on that right side?
Well, I think that's where you'll look in towards the draft, and maybe even in free agency, especially at right guard. I know there's been some talk of let's give Alex Kappa a chance and see what you have with him, and I agree with that somewhat, but I still think you want to bring someone in just to raise the bar there a little bit, and maybe have some more competition, and really see what you want to do there. I think Beninock, is going to go back outside to right tackle. I think that's where they're going to move him, and I think that's a more natural fit. And then have Kappa still cross train at right guard and right tackle, and see who's the best there. You still have Leonard Wester, who's decent. He could be a right tackle option. But I like Dotson. I think Dotson is, if he's healthy, I think he can still do the job. So yeah, I mean, I think there's plenty of options, especially for that right side and free agency or the draft. Probably more so in the draft. I think there's better prospects.
So it's a pretty deep draft for offensive linemen.
I think it's better than originally thought. I think the tackle class is pretty good, and I think the interior at guard and center is much better than most people thought originally. So there's a lot more depth there than uh, we first thought.
So
Again,
you
there's
so
no
you so realistically, you could pick somebody up in the second or third round then.
yeah, for sure. I think you can even get into day three a little bit and find some guys that could be productive starters. Uh, it's just we don't really have you don't really have the big names as far as the offensive line. There's no like Tyron Smith or um, no Quentin Nelson like there
Right.
was last year. So, but there is good quality linemen that can come in right away and start for this team. Like a
Right.
Jonah Williams, if that's an option. I mean, you could put him anywhere across the line, and he could be a very effective starter. Same thing with like a Cody Ford, Dalton Risner, or Reisner, I
Right.
should say. There's a lot of guys out there. Garrett Bradbury. And then if you look at free agency, there's some under the radar guys like AJ Can is a name that you don't hear much about that could be a pretty decent value. Maybe a Mike Upati if they want to bring him over from Arizona. He's a little bit older.
And
Might
he's
cost a little.
he's got injury. I've got injury questions. When I looked at
Yeah.
him as a free agent. I
Mhm.
had him circled because of the injuries that I've seen that he can't just shake that injury bug. So I don't
That is
know.
true. Yeah. Yeah, and that's maybe that's why they'll maybe look at an AJ Can from Jacksonville, who has been he's kind of similar to Donovan Smith actually, very consistent in his starts, but he does struggle at times against the pass rush. So it's just a matter of finding that right consistency and hopefully getting him to the next level as well. But yeah, I mean there's some other options. I can't think of names right now, but yeah, I mean they'll have chances to definitely improve the trenches.
Sorry.
Oh, you're good.
I got some in my something in my throat here.
Oh,
Um, no, just kind of getting back to that. Do you, when you look at the Bucks offensive line, and I know people have just gone in on it, at at will. Uh, are these players that you could keep as depth and then bring in other players and rotate some of these guys in? I mean, when
mhm,
you look at a Caleb Beninock, who I've been on him since day one, he's a fifth round pick. He wasn't drafted to be a starter. He was
mm,
drafted for depth.
yeah.
But the way the depth situation is in Tampa, he ends up being a starter because there's nobody for him to really compete with. Is that a fair assessment?
No, no, you're right. I mean, I think last year, I think their big mistake was letting go of J.R. Sweezy a little bit too soon. I think they should have let him, at least play out through preseason and see what you had. Because really, they didn't have to get rid of his contract. They could have went in with, him on the team. So, yeah, I think that plays into it. I think, Beninock maybe being better at right tackle and just a little misevaluation of his position. I think that goes back to coaching,
Yeah.
goes back to who you have as far as the coaches go, and making sure you have the best 53 and the best starting 22 on the field at all times. But yeah, I mean, those guys can be quality depth. I think Beninock, I think Alex Kappa. You hope Kappa can take the next step forward and really raise his game. Same thing with like Leonard Wester. Those are good quality depth pieces. I'm trying to think who else. Evan Smith is probably not going to be back.
Yeah.
But you'll have guys maybe like a Michael Littke who they had last year.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, I mean they have some good depth quality pieces. I think uh, they will definitely upgrade though to that right side and really find guys either in the draft or free agency and really target not only the offensive line but defensive line. I think is going to be a big priority.
Yeah, for me, when I look at this, there were a lot of experiments on the
Mhm.
offensive line, and that really frustrated me because when you look at a Ali Marpet, Ali Marpet is a Pro Bowl right tackle,
Yeah, right
and,
guard.
right guard, excuse me, right guard, and when you've got somebody like that, right guards are like gold in the NFL. You've got
Mhm.
somebody like that, leave him there, and you build around that.
Yeah.
But instead of moving him to center and move him here, and you're moving all these guys out of their natural positions, you're taking away their strengths.
Hmm.
And to me, when you have a subpar uh line coach like what the Bucks have, I mean, it didn't help matters any. So
Right.
I would really like to see some of these guys coached up by a a good, at least a decent line coach that let's see what they can do when they're playing to their strengths. And I think
Hmm.
you kind of build from that. And I think they really need to reevaluate. I'm sure they're doing that now, but reevaluate a lot of these guys and really see what you have.
Hmm.
Because again, this is a team effort. You could restructure this to where guys are playing at their strengths, and you bring in a few free agents, and you may have solidified that line.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I think coaching goes into it a lot because if you look at it, um, these guys will now have an understanding, a better understanding of what they're being asked to do. Bruce Arians, he knows what he wants to do on offense, and I think
He's
that's
a
gonna.
teacher.
Yeah, he's a good teacher, and he's got guys underneath him that understand what he's asking them to do. So everyone's going to be on the same page, I think, and that's going to be a big help. I think in the last regime, there's just too much miscommunication, guys not understanding their roles completely, the offense really not having an identity. Same thing on defense. I think that is going to be that's going to be a change. I think both sides of the ball, special teams, also, they're going to know what to expect. They're going to know what to do, and players are going to be in better spots. So that could help, guys like Caleb Benenoch or an Alex Kappa or even a Ryan Jensen, Donovan Smith, all those guys, they're going to be that much better because they have a clear understanding of what their job is, and they'll be better prepared,
Yep.
and it will help them to play faster. And that's huge in this league because you have to be able to play fast. If you can't, then you're always going to be a step behind. And if you look at the Bucs closely last year, that's what it looked like. We were always, one step behind the other team.
Yep, and I can attest to that. There were so many times that the Bucks looked lost. They
Hmm.
didn't know what to do, and just simplifying things on defense, we saw how much of a difference that made. Just having somebody who has an actual plan in place and knows what they want to do is going to be a big difference. Jeremy St. John's had an interesting question. He said, "What do you guys think about trying to trade back again? Do you think there is a can't miss player available for us at 5? Or do you trade back?" I would say, a good GM should be able to draft a quality player wherever he's picking at.
Hmm.
And if you're reading the board from 1 to 32, you will know you'll have an idea of who you would pick at a certain place. So I think it is a potential possibility to be able to um, move back in the draft and get some extra picks, and then kind of work your draft board that way. That's definitely a possibility. You can fix some holes and definitely help the team out.
Hmm. Yeah, I think, to answer that question, I think the Bucks are going to definitely look very hard at trading back and trying to get more picks. In this draft, they only have about 6 picks, so they're definitely going to add more. I think Jason Light loves the draft. Look at it last year. I mean, to be able to trade back from 7 to 12 and get 2 extra second round picks, I mean, that was huge. And then also trading back into the third round as well. So, I think there's going to be opportunities to trade down, and if there's a good one, I think you definitely take that into consideration. Again, if you have to stay at 5, I think there's going to be really good talent there available that we can get. So it's really a good position for the Bucks. I think they're in the right spot. You're right in the middle there of the top 10, and can really get an impact player, anywhere from pretty much 5 to 15 in this draft. I think personally.
Yeah, and there are some quarterback hungry teams. I mean, we can take Denver
Yeah,
off the board, but you still have
exactly.
Miami, you have Jacksonville, you have Washington.
Hmm.
Um, God, the New York Giants
Yeah.
definitely are looking at a potential quarterback. So there's a lot of teams that are looking for that franchise quarterback, the next Patrick Mahomes. I call it the Mahomes effect because that's what we're looking. That's what we're looking at here. And
Mm.
I think that there's going to be some decisions made. You may even see Oakland in the mix for a new quarterback. So with John Gruden, anything's possible, and you just don't know. I know Buccaneer Bruce is saying Denver as well, but I think picking up Joe Flacco
Hmm.
like they did, I kind of wonder if that takes them out of the running for a quarterback at least for this year.
Mm. Yeah, I mean that's a good point. I think Joe Flacco, that's a good fit for what they want to do offensively. But yeah, I could still see him taking a quarterback at 10. I just don't think they might feel the need to move up, to trade for it. I think they'll let a quarterback fall to them, and then maybe take it at 10, or maybe they wait till the second round. So
Yeah.
yeah, I mean that definitely affords them more options. I mean, as a Bucks fan, now you just got to hope that these other teams like Jacksonville or Washington or Miami kind of
I
like
would
strike.
even say the Giants. I mean, the Giants are going to be huge. Eli Manning is getting older.
Yeah.
and I really think that they're ready to move on from him. So I could definitely see the Giants in the mix for a quarterback as well.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, you got to kind of hope that they stay away out of the free agent pool and still, want a quarterback when draft time comes up, and hopefully these quarterbacks in this class really impress. That's really what as Bucks fans we should be hoping for, because hopefully that will drive their market up, and then we'll have the ability to really entice some other teams. And don't be surprised. I mean, I don't know if the Bucks will do this, but maybe talk highly of these quarterbacks. Maybe even throw it out there that you might be interested in taking one. I know they won't do that, but again, this is a poker game that you kind of have to play and really, maybe make teams think that, hey, maybe we are looking at this guy, and then that opens the door to trade back possibly.
Yeah. Another question: do you think the Bucks would trade for Patrick Peterson or Jalen Ramsey?
Yeah, I mean, either one of those guys would be awesome. I mentioned, I think it was last year during the season, we talked about possibly trading Gerald McCoy for Patrick Peterson, and
Yeah.
I would probably still make that trade today. I think that would be a good trade for the Bucks. Um, but I don't see us going after either one of those guys. I think it just personally it probably costs a little too much, and I don't think we're one player away. So yeah, short answer is no. If we were more complete, and maybe this was Bruce Arians' second or third year, maybe I could see it as a possibility.
Well, let me, while we're on that subject,
Mhm.
what do you think of the safeties that we have? I mean, or do you think these are guys that are capable? I mean, they're young, they're both young.
Yeah.
Um, I know you're getting rid of Chris Conti, and I'm sure that you will upgrade and bring in a veteran safety of some sort to kind of help back there a little bit. But
Hmm.
you've got some young guys back there that when called upon have done decent, considering the coaching that they've had to deal with. So I don't know. I mean, what do you think?
Yeah, I think our secondary is actually in a little bit better shape than most people think. When I look at the corners, I'm still very high on Carlton Davis. I think he's a perfect fit for this defense. I think Vernon Hargraves, I feel can play outside if necessary in this defense, because it'll allow him to play more press. But then again, I think he's a perfect fit for that slot position and playing inside at the nickel. Um, and then you look at our safeties. I feel very confident in Justin Evans and Jordan Whitehead. I think those two guys will be much better with this scheme, and it's really a scheme that elevates the play of the safeties. Todd Bowles being a former defensive back, I mean, you're going to get really good coaching in that position area. So I think Evans and Whitehead, and even an Andrew Adams, if they bring him back, I think that's a good group right there. As far as free agency, I think they will add a veteran corner, and probably add maybe a veteran safety if the price is right. So I think that's where I think they'll attack the secondaries and free agency, not so much the draft. I think if they do add something in the draft, it'll be later, like day three, because they already have so much invested
Right.
in the secondary with a lot of draft capital. I think MJ Stewart is probably going to move back to safety, or move to safety. I think that's just a more better fit for him. So just had a lot of moving pieces. I still think Ryan Smith is a decent corner if allowed to play aggressive like he did at times last year. So, and then you also have a Devontae Harris who's a decent corner. So there's some pieces there.
I
I don't think, yeah, I
I
don't think
wanted
it's
to I
as
wanted to throw
much.
this in there too. Vernon Hargraves coming back healthy. Uh, I think
Yes,
that would definitely, especially playing nickel, I think he would be of big benefit as well.
yes, absolutely. I think, and I talked about that. I was like VH3. Yeah, I mean he's going to be a good fit for what they're going to be asked to do, and there's going to be more blitzing and guys being able to generate pressure off the edge and allow these secondary guys to be more aggressive, and hopefully that leads to more turnovers, and that's something that Todd Bowles really strives for, and he's been one of the top guys when he's defense coordinator. His teams get turnovers. So yeah, I mean, like I
Yeah, and
said,
you talked about man press, and I know that
mhm,
that was something that Vernon Hargraves was known for coming out of college,
yes,
and we really didn't get to see that. We haven't got to see that from him on a consistent basis as a pro. So we don't really, that is supposed to be one of his strengths coming out of college, and let's hope that we get to see him, in that capacity, and let's just see what he can do.
yeah, absolutely. And like I said earlier, the focus for this team should be up front. Offense line, defense line, I think should be definitely the priority. That's where the draft is very strong this year, especially on the defensive line front. I mean, the Bucs should definitely try to add, two defensive linemen at least in this year's draft, and maybe even two offense linemen as well. So I think that's where they need to go. And then I think you can patchwork other spots as far as the secondary and maybe running back and linebacker. I think you can find guys, through free agency or even, later in the draft, whether it be undrafted free agents or, that kind of thing. Really put it together a more complete roster going forward.
Yeah. And I keep hearing the honey badger, Teron Matthews' name mentioned a lot
Yeah.
as far as a potential, potentially ending up in Tampa. I would be happy, like I said, I'd be happy with any of these guys coming here. But at the end of the day, I want this team to win. I want this
Mhm.
team to learn the concept of winning as a team. Um, Regardless of who the guy is on the name is on the back of the jersey, everybody coming together and collectively putting together a win. 4 quarters of football. Me and you have both talked about this. I
Mhm.
would say for the past couple of years, the Buccaneers have not been able to put together 4 quarters of football. That's what they're going to have to do. That's what's going to have to happen on a consistent basis in order for this team to start winning. I know that moves are made in the offseason, but at the end of the day, these guys have to come together and they have to win as a team. It's about wins and losses now.
Mhm.
I understand players are going to come in. It's fun to talk about this stuff, but the thing that still frustrates me is that we're not going to the playoffs. The Bucs are not going to the playoffs. I get sick of seeing Atlanta of all teams, the Saints or the Panthers going to the playoffs, and the Bucs don't go. This is something that needs to change. Instead of being excited about the postseason, I mean the offseason, let's try to get excited about the postseason because that's what it should really come down to be very honest.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's what I talk about when it's about adding the right players and really making sure that, whoever you bring into this team, you have to have a plan and you have to have a purpose for each of these guys and really, um, see these guys working out and what you're asking them to do, whether that be offense or defensive schemes and making sure you're putting together units on both sides of the ball and having these guys in place to be successful week in and week out. That's what I want to see going forward. I really want to see a connection between the front office and the coaching staff and really work as one to
Right.
find the best guys in each spot to put together a winning football team, like you said. And that's why, I get a little heated when, guys talk about Jason Light and, why is he still here and all of that, because, Jason Light did what he was asked to do, and that is to bring in players that the past coaching regime wanted. So it's hard to, go grocery shopping and then also try to cook the groceries as well. When you expect the coaching staff to do the cooking and you're asking the GM to do both. So I just want to see a little bit more cohesiveness and hopefully we see a better connection between front office and staff and
And
really get these players on the right foot going forward.
I want to bring up this point as well. I look at players like Quan Alexander, who's up for a contract.
Mhm.
You've got players like Adam Humphries up for a contract. Donovan Smith up for a contract. You might have to franchise. When was the last time the Bucs had to franchise anybody?
And it's been a long time.
Exactly. That's my point. When you've had players that have come around and now they're an integral part of your team, and you need to keep them, that tells you that that your general manager is doing his job, in my
Hmm.
opinion. I
Yeah.
know that he's had misses, but he's also had hits as well. So you could argue both sides of this, and I just think that the coaching was suspect, and I think he had to get his coach,
Yeah.
and not some reactionary BS that happened because you didn't want to lose a guy, but
Hmm.
going through the process of getting all the coaches available and seeing who the best guy for the job is. This is the first time we've done this in 2 decades where you've been able to go out, bring coaches in, interview them, and pick your coach. So I think the Bucs are in a really good position right now, but it's going to be up to them to put all that together as a team, as management, and as a coaching staff to put together a winning product. So I'm excited for it. To be honest, I
Hmm.
really am. I'm cautiously excited, but at the same time, I think that there are moves that can be made. There's a lot of talent on this team, and this team can definitely be a team that can play for a super or a playoff spot.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, let's see. Hump will be catching balls for Andrew Luck next year.
Hmm.
They had the most cap. I don't know. I can see him with the Patriots. As long as he's not with Atlanta, I don't care.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. He's gonna get
well,
his money.
yeah, he's gonna get his money. And again, I have to ask you this, and maybe I'm looking at this wrong. The money that Adam Humphries is asking for is what a number 2 receiver would be asking for, like a Mohamed Sanu, some
Hmm.
of your receivers that play opposite of your number 1 receiver. I have to
Yeah.
ask you this. You put him opposite of somebody else, like you put opposite of a number 1 receiver. Is he your guy? I like
Hmm.
him as a number 3. I think that's his skill set, that's his niche, and that's where he eats, being that number 3 guy.
Hmm.
But being in a number 2, we're going to see if he's elevated his game to a point where he could do that. We saw that with Russell Shepard. Russell Shepard thought he was a number 3, a number 2 guy, and we see how that worked out. So I hope this works out for him. Whatever he does, get his money or whatever. Hope it works out for him. I love him as a player. He is the Lazarus man. Every year, people wrote him off as dead, and he came back from the dead and continued to ball out. So I hope one more time. I hope Lazarus rises and stays with the Bucs. But if he doesn't, I understand.
Yeah, I mean, it stinks to see him go or possibly, be on a different team, but it's just part of the business. You have a free agent market for a receiver that is pretty down this year, and I think he's probably, one of the best of the bunch. So, he's going to be in demand, and that means more money for him. And unfortunately, that's bad news for the Bucks as they have to make wise decisions with their cap
Yeah.
space and contracts coming up and everything. So, and it's just hard to pay 8-9 million to a
Was it
slot
eight?
receiver.
Wasn't he asking for 10?
Yeah, I think his asking price was 8 million, but again, it's still that's number two money in this
Yeah.
league, and it's hard to pay a guy when he'll most likely be your third or fourth option when you look at the offense that the Bucks will present. When you have a Mike Evans, a Chris Godwin, and an OJ Howard who could get ridiculous number of targets in this offense, especially given Bruce Arians hasn't really had a tight end of that caliber. So yeah, I mean, it'll be tough, and that's probably why the reason the Bucks drafted Justin Watson last year in the fifth round. So they knew this day was coming. And again, you have guys like him and Bobo Wilson that could possibly step up and take that spot.
Yeah, most definitely. Shout out to Shooty Shoots. He's wreaking havoc in the chat there, talking about Joe McCoy getting cut. So there's that. But I know their history, the history of Shooty Shoots and Joe McCoy. Hopefully they can mend fences before he's gone, and fix the error of their ways. So you just put out a podcast. I will be listening to that tomorrow at work,
Mhm.
as I always do. And as usual, guys, if you're not following Michael Pless, you really need to get in gear, because this is the guy you want to be following in the off season. especially with the draft, with the combine. Just so many logical things to talk about. Bringing common sense back to football when you want to have football conversations on social media.
Mhm.
These are the kind of people, him and his partner Mark, both really knowledgeable guys. And again, you want to be following them when the draft comes. I promise you, you would think these guys are in the war room with some of these GMs, just the way that they call some of these picks. So please check them out. Follow them if you're especially on Twitter at Real Bucks Talk. Follow him, and you won't be sorry. Definitely a guy that you want to follow in the off season.
Thanks, Gene. Yeah, I mean, it's just something we love to do. I mean, this is our
Yeah,
passion. Talking football and really understanding what this team is going to be and what they're about. And we just try to explain it in a simpler way and really present it to fans and really just try to see the why and how, if you want to put it that way, and why are they doing this and why are they doing that, and really just put a
and the
reason.
cool thing is, you guys take the emotion out of football. You basically, this is what it is, you know.
Yeah, yeah,
And I think it makes it easier when to follow when somebody has no vested interest in this guy or this guy, but they're putting players or putting options out there that you can follow. And I think that's what I really appreciate about you guys the most, is that you don't have a dog in the race. You just put names out there that you think would be a good fit for this team, and I think that's very important.
yeah, for sure. And we've now shifted to just the podcast, and it's been fun. I mean, we're starting to get guests on, and we've had you on there as well,
Yeah,
and along with this podcast. So it's it's awesome to just hear different perspectives. And really, the last couple episodes, if you want to check it out, it's available on iTunes or Google Play. But we had Jess Root on from the Arizona Cardinals. He covers the Cardinals on Cards Wire, and also he has his own podcast, Rise Up, See Red. So it was a lot of knowledge on the coaching staff in general, and what they're going to be able to bring. And then tonight we had Connor Rogers on from the Bleacher Report and also Stick to Football podcast, and he really provided a great insight on what Todd Bowles is going to be and what kind of defense he's going to bring, and really just an insight on the roster. And really both of those guys, it was great to hear that they had the right mindset as far as how to fix this team, and both of them set up front in the trenches. So
yeah,
that was really nice to hear, and great guys. You know, just really nice to get to know them and talk football.
yeah. That's the cool thing about getting across podcasts with people is you
Mhm.
get people on and you build these relationships, and it gets bigger than the Buccaneers or the Jets or whatever your team is.
Right.
It becomes a football community. So definitely something that I always encourage, and it's been really fun watching your podcast grow from like 5 people to where you are now. So
Hmm.
it's just going to be exciting as it continues to grow. I mean, as you guys continue to put out good content like you are, it's just going to continue to get bigger and bigger. So definitely excited about that. I mean, big things to come this off season and going
Yeah.
into the regular season. And we will continue to do this show when we can, and as we
Yeah.
get closer to the draft and closer to free agency and the combine, I think it's going to really start to heat up. So
Hmm.
again, we'll try to get together next week. I don't know what your schedule is going to be like,
Hmm.
but I would definitely like to get on and kind of feature some players that would be the biggest benefit for the Bucs, especially on offensive side of the ball and defensive side of the ball. It has to be on the lines. I
Yeah.
mean, you watch the playoffs, we watch the wild card games, we watch the Super Bowl, NFC Championship, AFC Championship. Every single game, the one thing they had in common was in the trenches. These
Hmm.
guys were dominant in the trenches, and that is what is that's the big deal right there to me, is that
Yeah.
in the trenches they are addressing this. The Ravens, and I've said this before and I'll continue to say this, the Ravens draft a defensive lineman almost every year. There's like a year they don't miss in the draft getting at least one defensive lineman as some capacity for that line. So they continually churn those guys in. And I think that, with the Bucs taking years off from not drafting defensive linemen and
Yeah.
missing on draft picks, they have put themselves behind the 8 ball. When Jason Light got here, and I'll continue to say this, I'm going to continue to beat this drum. Jason Light had no talent on this team at all, with the exception of maybe 3 or 4 players. And tell me if I'm wrong here, 3 or 4 players, and they had to build from that to where they are now. Now you've got guys and you're worried about contracts and not being able to sign everybody. That tells me that you're doing something right when you have guys that everybody that you have, you can't sign. And that tells me that you're doing a good job. And we can't say it's because of cap space. I think the Bucs have like $96,000 in dead money, and that's it. They and everybody else is in the triple digit, 6 digits on up. So again, he's doing what he's supposed to do as a general manager. He can't get out there and coach, but I think he's got a coach that can definitely potentially turn this team around. So let's see what he does.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I agree with everything. I mean, you look at the Super Bowl champs and the Patriots. I mean, they won that game because their offensive line and defensive line were better. I mean, they just won up front, and that's the key to the game. I mean, it's really that simple.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm trying to find your podcast. Somebody is asking in the chat for me to set that link. So give me a second.
Yeah, it should be available if you just go on our Twitter page at Real Bucs Talk. Again, it's available on Google Play as well. It's not only iTunes. So iTunes, Google Play, Podbean. You can find it on, and I'm sure there's other platforms that it's available on. Really, if you just do a Google search, just type in Real Bucs Talk, one word, it should be available right there. It should pop up. I don't think it's the first option, but if you go down a little ways, it's right there.
All right. Well, yeah, man. Again, guys, like Ryan, you're gonna appreciate this. No, his is audio. His is more audio, and I think they are. Not to let the cat out of the bag, but I think they might be going to YouTube at some point. And I hope they do, and build a following there.
Yeah, in the works.
It will happen eventually. But guys, I promise you won't be let down if you're checking them out during the off season. Just what they're talking about. I would listen to them over the radio stations, or a lot of your sports writers that are established in Tampa. I would definitely put them above that. I mean, I go to them first before I look at some of the other sports outlets out there. So again, these guys, I trust them, and I think that they're destined for big things, especially with their podcast.
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate Gene. There's so many good podcasts out there. Really,
and again, I'm not taking anything away from them. I'm just saying that as far as being comfortable, you're the first person I go to. So just know
appreciate that. I mean, like I was saying, there's so many good podcasts out there. So I mean, that's really all I look at now is really just other people's podcasts, and there's a lot of good information out there. And it's not just our podcast and then the one I do. There's so many good Bucs podcasts out there as well. So there's a lot of good information that you can find pretty easily, and it's right there to listen to. So it's fun. I mean, it's really good stuff that you have so many options out there. You can really pick and choose what you want to listen to, and there's a flavor for everybody, pretty much.
Yeah, most definitely, and I think that's the best part of it. With the way the national media covers the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, it's so nice that people have come in and decided to create podcasts for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers to cover them.
Right.
Whether it's Pewter Report, Pewter Plank, What the Buck, there are just so many that really capture all this, and I really the Sports Web, another podcast, a guy that Peter Blake has been covering the Tampa Bay Buccaneers for years, and he does a great job of that on Bucs Report. So so many different people out there, different outlets You may even catch him live at Ferg's in St. Pete. So, just be sure to, get out there and check out some of these different outlets that are out there because, like you said, there are some really good ones. But again, I turn to you during draft season. So there's always that.
Yeah. I mean, we're right in the middle of it as far as looking at prospects, putting together, our draft sheet and who to look for. And I mean, I got a lot of favorites. I mean, my favorite probably right now out of all the prospects is probably Devin Singletary out of Florida Atlantic. Love that guy. He's a running back. He reminds me a little bit of a LaShawn McCoy.
Oh,
Not
really?
as big as LaShawn, but he's just shifty and can make people miss and really a fun running back. Elite vision. But yeah, I mean, just getting into it, I've looked at mainly right now corners and safeties. I've looked about 10 to 15 at each position, and it's a solid group. I think there's a lot of guys if they wanted to add there, they could wait to maybe day 3. So there's a lot of good prospects in the secondary, and I think Mark has looked at a little bit at the offensive line, defensive line, and there's a lot to like from this class. I think there's a lot of good overall players, not many star players, but there are good players that can come in and be starters right away.
That's the key right there is
Hmm.
getting those guys in place that could come in and make an instant impact. And
Exactly.
and I think that's something that I'm sure that Jason Light is looking at are guys that he brings in. Will they be able to come in and make a impact immediately?
Hmm.
Um, this is going to be important. This is a very important year for everybody. Jameis Winston, you look at the coaching staff, the general manager, it's just going to be a big year for everybody. So
Hmm.
again, they have to get the right guys and they have to build this team, not one player, not a superstar player, not two superstar players, but
Hmm.
guys that can come together and win as a team, play 4 quarters of football, and have that accountability in the locker room and really turn things around from what we're seeing.
Yep. Yeah, I completely agree. I think that's why in free agency you won't really see us go after those big name type of guys. Maybe one to two, but I think you're going to really look for the value type, the guys that are under the radar, guys that can come in and be productive and play at a cheaper contract and really provide that production. So I'd be looking for guys like that, and hopefully that's where the evaluation really needs to be strong. I think you really need to get with your pro scouts and really make sure that your coaching staff is on the same page and understand, okay, we want to bring in this guy to fill this role and vice versa. Just making sure everyone's on the same page as far as what is your job going to be, okay, he fits here, this guy's slotted there, all those guys, are in the right spot and it builds the puzzle of the big picture, and you're really filling out a roster from top to bottom so you have your best chance to win come regular season. Not so much about making these splash signings, it's about making the right hires, and that's what we have to do this year, especially like you said, it's a win now year. I mean, this is it for a lot of guys. We have to win.
Yeah, yeah, most definitely. So again, that's something that we'll continue to discuss. And we will see if we can get together next week and I will be available. Hopefully I can get you back on again and we can, continue to talk about this and talk a little bit more about draft prospects and free agents that are available. Hope you guys enjoyed the show. If you're not following, just go ahead and hit that subscribe button and be sure to follow along. And I will be on again next week. I'll try to we'll try to get Mike back on. I know he's got what are you doing, like 2 podcasts a week or 3?
Right now it's been one, so just one a week.
Oh, okay.
Kind
Kind
of,
of
yeah,
scale
we kind of
back.
scaled it back. I will be going on vacation next Thursday, but we might be able to work out something Wednesday night. Can get it done.
Okay. Yeah, most
Yeah,
definitely.
yeah,
All right, folks. Well, thank you everybody for following along and checking us out. Everybody in the chat, you've been great, and I appreciate all the everything that's going on in the chat. So thank you so much for that. And we're going to go ahead and get out of here. But again, thank you everybody. And again, before I let everybody go, ultimately as a Bucks fan, you're a Bucks fan. You've been a Bucks fan as this team has not been winning. Just consider yourself a diehard. We want to see this team go to the playoffs. We want to see this team winning games. It's not about who's coming here. It's about what they do when they get here. So that's kind of how you have to look at things, and look more at the playoffs as opposed to winning in the offseason. You want to be winning in the regular season and the postseason. That's where winning really counts. So that's pretty much it for me, and I'm out of here.